Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to welcome everyone to the June 14th Light Board meeting. First order of business is upcoming meetings. Our next meeting is July 12th and then August 9th. So we're for now going back to our once a month meeting schedule.
I have a conflict on the 9th of August, so we're gonna look for another date.
Okay, so new time. I know we have vacations, it's summer. Warren or Alice, do you have any conflicts with July 12th or August
Yeah,
9th?
I will not be able to attend the July 12th meeting. I'll be out of the country.
Yes, you had let me know that. All right, and Alice, I know you've got that great trip coming up. Is that in August or July or?
Friday.
Oh, it's Friday. Okay, all
Wow.
right. We'll see you when you get back then.
So I'll be back on the 8th. If we end up having a meeting on the 12th, just let me know. But I'm not taking my computer with me.
Okay. Then I will,
I have a
assume-
phone, but I'm not taking my computer.
Yeah. All right, so it looks like July 12th is our next meeting and Warren won't be able to attend, but hopefully our two new members will be able to attend. We have two members. They had existing meetings at this time, so they won't be joining us today. And we'll need to look for a new time on August 9th. Next is minutes. We had some great progress on minutes because we got some outside help. So we have 4 sets of minutes to review. I think I've heard from both Warren and Alice that they reviewed the minutes and they look good. Do we have any discussion that we would like to have on the minutes, Warren or Alice?
I move we approve the minutes.
All
I
right.
second that.
Well, could I have is it okay if I make the motion as chair? I forget the process.
No,
Okay.
The chair cannot.
All right, so the months to review or the meeting dates to review is February 8th, January 11th, January 25th, and March 22nd. Could Alice, do you mind making a motion for those dates?
Sure. I move to approve the minutes of hold on, they're in here somewhere.
February 8th,
January 11th,
yes,
February 8th,
yeah.
Alright.
January 25th
January 25th,
and March 22nd.
and March 22nd.
All right.
I second.
Great, thank you, Warren. I'll approve, Warren
Approve.
and Alice.
Yes.
Great, so we have 4 sets of minutes approved and we're able to keep.
Way to
moving.
go.
Yeah, that's progress. It's great to have that outside help. Really helps things move along. So the next order of business is the director's update. Dave, would you like to take it from here?
sure. Excuse me, vegetation management, I reported on over the last 2 months. Marquee Tree has completed the tree trimming in the northwest quadrant of the town. They completed on budget. The only change order we had was for the time extension because we had a delay in the beginning of the project. So that went very well. Job was well done and completed it very timely. So we will early in 24 start the process for the next quadrant and continue on with the 4-year cycle. Electrical vehicle charging stations. As you may recall, we got a grant for 2 level 3 DC fast chargers. Those are going to be installed at Rideout Playground. The deadline is tomorrow to have everything completed. However, we can't get the electrical disconnects, so I've already spoken to the state and we're going to file an extension So still working on the lead times on those disconnects. They're out there, up to 6 months. So, we'll see what happens, but we're working on getting those. We have everything else ready to go. So in the operation center here at the light plant, we installed 2 of the 3 dual head Clipper Creek chargers. They work great. Pretty happy with them. So the 3rd one will get installed here shortly, but so that'll give us 6 spots in the garage that we can charge at right now. On the middle school solar and storage project, staff has met with the general contractor as the project's getting ready to kick off. We've engaged a consultant that we typically use for some design work, and they're going to be working on the switchgear design for us. Once that's completed, we'll put a bid out and get that ordered. Lead times on switchgears are out there pretty significantly right now, so we're trying to move along as quickly as we can so we don't have to do any temporary connections for when the school comes up for power and array and all that. We're also working with SDA on the RFP for the array and storage system. So we figured we'd continue to work with them as this is their specialty and they'll know what needs to go in there. And then, we'll put that out to bid, and that will include the labor to construct the array and to install the storage device and all the wiring that's associated with it. So that's coming. Transformers, we put a bid out for transformers. I've reported in the past the lead times. They came back exactly what we thought they were going to be. We're looking for single phase pad mounts, 3-phase pad mounts, and overhead transformers. So we received bids, and we're going through the total ownership costs right now. And what that means is you have a bid price, but you also have transformer losses. So over a 30-year period, each transformer is going to cost you more. So we do that analysis as part of our work to figure out what's the best financial decision to make. We also factor in lead times, and the single phase pad mounts lead times are just over a year. The 3-phase pad mounts, which are more commercial industrial transformers, and the overhead units have lead times out to 3 years. So,
Wow.
yeah, something we've never seen before. We're used to seeing transformers in 3 to 6 months, depending on where we are, but we're out there pretty significantly. And I think that's it.
Great. So yeah, terrible to hear about how long those transformers are going to take. There's not much we can do about that. That's the industry. But do you think there's competitors in the industry that will push for getting product produced faster and start to ramp up, or is this something you're just there's too small a market for it and we're just
There's all kinds of issues with steel and stuff like that. So everyone's in the same boat, all the manufacturers, that we generally deal with. And many of the vendors that we buy from in the past didn't even bid.
Wow.
It's not a problem that's going to go away anytime soon. Fortunately, we have inventory right now, but we really have to keep a close eye on that. And, if we have transformers in the field that we can replace with smaller ones, we'll do that. But right now we're okay, but it's still, 3 years down the road on some of them. That's a long time.
It's a very long time. I mean, a few bad storms in the US and things start to get really dicey.
Yeah, and with this bid, we're talking $2 million. So
Wow.
Expensive.
it's a lot of money.
Warren.
Yeah, with the school solar project, are you making plans for taking advantage of the direct pay tax credit?
Yeah, we're looking at that. We haven't come to any conclusions yet, though.
I mean, as far as I could tell, and from various meetings I've been in, the town should be able to qualify, and obviously that would make a big difference in the cost of the whole array.
Yep. I agree with you.
And that's 25.5% that we were planning on, right? Or we're hoping for. We didn't plan on because we asked for town meeting to provide the whole amount, and hopefully we reduce it by that incentive.
Right.
Good.
Great. And also, you mentioned the level 3 charging. That will be CCS. In the recent news cycle, Ford and GM have partnered with Tesla on the supercharging network. Has Tesla ever reached out to Concord Light?
No.
No. Okay.
Elon hasn't given you a call?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering if there's been any of those opportunities, but I think they'll be looking for more sites in the future. So, getting those stations would be helpful. But again, out of our control. Thank you for the update. And next on the agenda is the broadband update from Jason.
Hello, everyone. I'm pleased to say that recruitment is going well for the network engineer position that we have vacant right now. We've gotten some really good candidates lately and had some good interviews. We're bringing in candidates for second round interviews this week and next week. We also, for the town, got some new recruitment tools that we can use to get a better pool of candidates. Typically, we did much more passive recruiting, and we're kind of taking a more active role in recruitment now. So that's exciting. One of the biggest things that we've been working on as a group in the last couple months has been the AMS gateway deployment. I don't want to steal any thunder from the discussion we're going to have later, but I just want everybody to know that the technicians, the network engineers, the broadband manager, the whole team has been working on this quite a lot, and I'm really pleased with the milestones that they've been hitting. And I let them all know yesterday that I was really glad that we are where we are. So I appreciate all that work and coordination that went into that. Regarding the Affordable Connectivity Program, it is live now. We have customers who have expressed interest, and we have customers who have been approved. So we are now going through the motions of getting all the data that's needed to file, and we're now starting to enact the communication plan. The good news is people are hearing about this, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that this is prominent on order forms on the website, sent out in blasts and news and notices and all sorts of other areas of communication. So that's good. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that the staff in the last month or two have been doing a lot of extra hour work in server rooms, network closets to clean up the network environment. None of this has been customer impacting. It's all just been either town or labeling, cleaning up, cable management, things like that. And it seems like a small thing, but when there's an outage or there's an issue or you need to do expansion, it greatly speeds up the ability to do that. And it's not glamorous work, but it needed to get done. It had been several years since that had happened. And, over time, you add new cables, you add new equipment, and you just kind of put it where it can go. But I really appreciate all the work that the team did to make sure that everything is as clean as possible, labeled. And it also lets you know where you need to do more work to identify gaps that you might have. So that was really good. And that's all I had.
Excellent. Well, that's great. And it's great to hear that you're cleaning things up, and, because a clean work area makes things easier to fix when they go wrong. So that's great. Alice, do you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick one. Can you say a word or two about what the new recruitment tools are for finding good candidates? Because that sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, so historically, when we advertise a new position, the standard is posting on Indeed and then posting it on the Mass Municipal Association website for the job board. That's kind of the bare minimum. And then depending on the position, we might advertise in a few other places. But recently we purchased the LinkedIn recruitment tool, which allows us to actually find candidates who are certified, have the right qualifications, background, education for this particular position. And then it allows us to designate 20 hiring managers who have access to that pool of talent. And we know that they're interested in, a new position, but they might not have seen our advertisement. So it allows for a much more targeted recruitment.
Yeah, that's great. I've used that too in the past.
Excellent. All right. Any other questions for Jason? Seeing none. Next on the agenda is the time of use and how net metering will work with the suggested time of use structure. Last time we did this, Alice requested that we talk about it with some visuals. So I prepared some slides for us to look at, and hopefully this will help us go through what we need to. Do I have sharing capability? I
You
do.
should be able to, yes.
Yes, great.
It's unfortunate that our new members aren't here to hear this presentation. It would be helpful at this point.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
send you a copy of the meeting when it's done.
Yeah, good idea. Thanks.
Let's see. Now, are you seeing the presentation or are you seeing the operations, the slide controls?
The time of use and net metering slide deck is up.
Okay, so you just see the slides. You
Yep.
don't see all this.
Oh, yeah.
No,
No, on the right, on
You're
the
in
right, there's
presentation
another,
mode.
yeah.
Okay, so I
Just
am
swap
sharing.
displays.
What is he using, Linux?
Right at the top, it says swap displays. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, that works. Great. All right, so swap displays, but now there we go. Now we'll advance. All right, so just a quick reminder that the time of use structure that we've been talking about collects for the expenses. Here's a slide from this year's town meeting that says the 2021 expenses. Here's the categories listed out. Here's kind of what each of those would be. And this structure goes into this time of use plan, which was what we mocked up back in January. It has a fixed fee of $12 for 2021 values, and it collects the transmission expenses during the on-peak. It collects capacity during the mid-peak, collects energy all hours, and collects the variable portion of the transmission, the distribution fee for all hours. So that was what we've already talked about. And what we're talking about is how net metering would affect this structure. So the substation load is where we set expenses for capacity and for the transmission. And solar customers can lower the load midday. And I've put this example over here. I've used this in a few other presentations, but this is 2008 substation load and the 2018 substation load. And you can see how prior to installation of solar in town, we had this high period of demand. And then in the evening, we had that little bump. And then as we've added like 14 megawatts of solar, you can see that solar is really reducing the early and midday, but it's not really doing a great job of reducing this peak. And if I can go back, you'll see that this is that load shape that we have in 2021. So you can see that 7 o'clock is really when those peaks are hitting. And so solar customers continue to push down because it's uncontrolled in these times. And they do have a small reduction in this peak, but it's becoming less and less apparent. 2012, we would have peaks at 1 o'clock, but now they're getting really to that sunset hour. But battery customers have the ability to lower load anytime. And so given a rate structure where they have on-peak times, they will self-consume from their battery to avoid these fees, or they could push into the distribution network reducing substation demand for credits. But that requires that we provide them some incentive to do that, which is where I'm suggesting that we give them a credit for those hours. So exporting electricity, the customer needs a simple rate structure to understand. I mean, if we create a real-time pricing, we could be more accurate, but it would be overwhelming for customers. Oh, and I provided an example of what a solar customer's day is. So this was my house in 2012. And you can see here that the solar production really kicked in midday. This particular day, there was a call for a peak alert because it was a summer heat wave. And that hour ending 4 ended up being the ISO capacity hour. But you can see this yellow line shows what my load would be without that solar. So I was running the AC unit, going along, it ran the AC in the morning. Oops, sorry about that. And then between that 1 and 4 o'clock hour, you can see I minimized my demand on the grid. But because I was producing, I was supplying my neighbors with electricity during those hours. And then you can see here that it kicks on once that hour is over and my AC unit kicks on and so forth. But that particular day, I produced 50 kilowatt hours. My home consumed 27, meaning that net I sent 23 kilowatts to Concord Light. And so in this structure, we want to make sure that we incentivize people to avoid the peaks and to share electricity during those peak hours with their neighbors, because the substation, our group effect, is what was setting those CP1 and CP12 expenses. So we want the substation to go down. The suggested structure would be to not credit the blue distribution fee, because every time someone utilizes the system for consuming energy, they should be paying that variable charge. So they get no credit there, but they get a credit for the generation and the mid-peak, the capacity, and the on-peak. So if you produce solar electricity when it's not really needed, and I'll go back to this load here. So if you're producing electricity here, well, that's not really lowering expenses. So you get credited only the charge of energy. But if you're pushing into these hours, well, then you will get a larger credit because you're helping to avoid those peak expenses here. And this is not designed, the time of use rate and this net metering credit structure is not designed to be an incentive. It is designed to collect for the expenses created in a fair way to get people treated as individuals, not as a rate class. But it does help us meet our climate goals stated in our climate plan, because it gives more value to those making the investments into solar and batteries. And those are areas that we still want to accelerate adoption of. And a final slide here. I happen to be talking to Kate Hanley about solar arrays for her house. And I looked at Acton and Concord, and they actually, Tesla's website had a great little summary of the cost for someone to do this. So you can see this connected solutions. That is a rebate based on batteries. And this is the SMART's storage incentive adder within the SMART program. We don't have any utility supported efforts to adopt distributed storage, but outside of Concord there are. But we do have a solar rebate as well. And Acton does not. They just get the federal tax credit and the $1,000 state credit. So I'm going to stop sharing because I can't see anyone. And I want to get your thoughts on this concept of crediting those sending power to the distribution system, the generation, the capacity and transmission, and not the distribution. Allison, Warren, is this clarify what?
Yeah,
suggested?
but I find that helpful, and that general approach seems right to me. We should reflect the real value of the power to the town, and that seems like a reasonable approach.
Yeah, and we, in talking with Laura, she was concerned with the time of use rate structure having such a wide mid-peak, because that is really something that happens in the summer around those peak hours. And so the number of hours that are in the mid-peak can be reduced, but that makes the price during those hours go up. And I think once we talk to the consultants, we can find what balance the board is happy with between limited hours to be more accurate around those peak events, but the tolerance of, kilowatt hour pricing that's quite high.
Right.
Brian, did I see calendar year 2012 was your sample?
Yeah.
That was the activity. So I had meter data for then, but the pricing is using the mock data, which was in the 2021 rate structure.
So the only thing that I would say is the load profiles have shifted since then to the peaks are later.
Yes.
Yeah. So, they're usually between 5 and 7 opposed to 4.
Yes, and that is because you saw in that slide where it compared 2008 and 2018, the 2013 solar effort, the W.R. Grace installation, the landfill, these have all shifted to that evening peak is later and later. And the good thing is that the time of use rate structure reflects that. So the credits would be applied. For example, in that example I showed, there was only like less than 1 kilowatt that was credited for an on-peak hour. And most of the credits were the mid-peak and the generation only in the morning for that solar example. So that person would have been paying, the full on-peak price for 3 out of the 4 hours. Warren.
Yeah, I just want to confirm this. I assume your presentation was talking conceptually
Yes.
about how we would compensate solar production, but it was not saying anything about what the hours for peak or mid-peak would be, and wasn't saying anything about what the price of power during those periods would be. It was really just a conceptual presentation.
Yes, thank you. That's a good clarification. It was to get the concept, to understand the concept, not the actuals. I rely on our cost of service study and the consultants to come up with those.
Thank you.
How much of that analysis is driven by the interest in that at-home battery storage? Because at this point, it's a very small market for battery storage. So I'm curious about when you develop the thinking around this, how much of it is driven by those, that part of the model, the battery storage component?
Little and a lot. So little in the sense that the point is, the customer behavior creates expenses, and the time use structure should fairly, charge and credit those activities. So that's the math side. But the good thing is that because we have so much solar, the peaks are happening after the sun has set. And so the higher value that comes out of the calculation of being, accurate in charging and crediting lends itself to supporting storage because customers can find more value. So I don't think someone is going to see this time of use structure and say, oh, I want to go spend,
$30,000 to put in my battery.
yeah, I don't think that they're going to see that and spend $30,000 to add batteries. But if they want, resiliency, and they're saying, oh, I want to put in a gas generator so that when the power goes out, I want to make sure that I have my electricity, they can look at a battery in a more favorable manner because they can use it for this peak shaving, where they can take load away from those peak hours, and charge it during the off-peak hours, or use generation like solar to charge it. And it will have a slightly more favorable financial, but I wouldn't say it's going to become cheaper. But again, the rate changes based on load. So if suddenly a catastrophe happens and we lose the landfill and we lose W.R. Grace and other large arrays, and we go back to that 2008 kind of load profile where we're very demanding in the midday, well, then solar without storage would make a lot of financial sense. But that's not where we are. We're moving along and we're adopting some of the solar, and it's changing our load curve, and storage is going to be the only real way to reduce those real high evening peaks.
So I just
Mhm.
have to ask this question about battery storage. This is a discussion about time of use rates and how we can lower the peak with dispatchable solar, I guess is what we call that, from having accessible batteries. Isn't it more efficient if we were to have the batteries not in the home, but at our solar sites?
It is,
Where our capacity for storage is much greater and much more under the control of CMLP.
yes, and I think we'll need both. So I think that the utility can find value by using all customer money to invest in storage at these large arrays and make them dispatchable to level load. But also, I think we have to empower our customers to make their own decisions, to say, here's a rate that reflects the expenses the light plant has experienced, whether or not the utility has put in storage. Based on that rate structure, you do what you can to lower your bill, because when you lower your bill, you lower it for the expenses for the utility. So I don't think it's a one or the other. I like the concept of, customers putting up their capital and the resources of the light plant being put towards, other projects. Warren, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was gonna make a comment about storage, and look, we have a lot on our plate at the moment, so I'm not pushing for this at the moment, but we should perhaps think of something comparable to the state's Connected Solution program for storage. That the reason that program was instituted is it's using energy efficiency funds. And basically what they ended up concluding after they studied the situation was that those incentives for customers to put in energy storage was a cost-effective measure for the system, because it was ultimately reducing peaks and reducing costs enough that, in a sense, the IOUs were getting the benefit of that, and they were making money on the customers installing storing storage. And we may want to look at that some point in the future. I'm not pushing it for the moment.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. The concept of a virtual power plant, the town has worked with Cadmus to do a study of solar and storage in town for town resilience. So the idea that we'd place storage at critical sites, like pumping stations, or the police and fire. We could put batteries at these sites and ensure that they have backup power where we have generators, but we would need some software to do that concept of a virtual power plant. And that the idea there was that the town would create a little virtual power plant. And once we had all the technology in place, we could open that up to other customers like residents and commercial. But yes, I mean, they're offering $3,500 for a 13 kilowatt energy storage system under the connected solutions.
Yeah, and basically, again, the reason, the grounds on which they did it was data that showed it was a cost-effective measure for the system. The other thing I would say in terms of resilience, I think sometimes we could get a little carried away with talking about battery storage for resilience and for peak shaving, because those things compete against each other. If you drain your battery during the peak hours and then the power goes out at 2 o'clock in the morning, your battery has been drained. It's not there to supply that resilience.
And in the Connected Solutions program, they do a 50-50. So they use the top 50% for the virtual power plant and guarantee the bottom 50 for resilience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting conversation. I don't know that it has legs at this point for us. I feel like we have a very huge plate to fill right now with deploying our smart meters. It's great to know that there's a future we need to think about, but I think we're not ready to bite another gigantic project.
Yeah, Warren prefaced that conversation with exactly that statement, and I would agree as well that, you know, distributed storage is a great thing. We're seeing great programs, but we got to finish off some of our current projects before we talk about that. And full AMI deployment and the data that comes along with it will be key in understanding those programs.
Absolutely key. I mean, I worry about how our data analysis capabilities are on the amount of data that be coming in through the smart meters to be able to effectively use it.
Yeah.
So I'd rather get that under our belt and then grow our, ideas. We are long on ideas always.
Long on ideas, need to finish things up.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to ask Dave and Laura, because you haven't commented, but I would love your thoughts as well.
I'm gonna, excuse me 1 second. My computer's about to die. I'll be right back.
Okay. Dave or Laura, would you like to share your thoughts, or do you want to wait for Alice to come back?
Let's wait for Alice.
All right. So the question on the agenda we're trying to answer is to receive board feedback on the proposed credit structure for electricity supplied by customers to Concord Light based on a time of use pricing. So we're collecting feedback is the goal today. And as soon as Alice is ready, we'll go with your comments. Nope. Alice, are you all set? Nope. There we go.
Made it. Thank you.
Okay.
Didn't realize it wasn't plugged in.
All right, Dave, your thoughts.
Laura, do you want to talk to it first, since it's dealing with the rates?
Sure. So I guess what I would say is what Brian has presented is one idea for how to treat solar credits under a time of use rate structure. And there are many other ideas out there about how to do this. Based on the research I've done recently, which I think Dave's going to talk about in a minute, I would say that the structure he has proposed is very solar friendly. And that most of the other states that have recently redesigned their net metering under time of use rates have proposed much lower crediting for solar provided back to the grid. So I think it would be cool for the board to understand what some of the other options are out there. There are proposals such as grid access fees, non-bypassable charges, charging distribution on both delivered and received, as opposed to just the net. So there are a host of myriad possibilities. And I think it would be helpful for the board to understand for a complete or more complete picture of some of the other possibilities when they consider the best path forward.
Yep, I fully welcome reviewing other strategies as well, but I wanted to propose this strategy for review, in addition to reviewing existing strategies. I think that's a great idea. Dave?
Yeah, and just to kind of build on what Laura was saying, we're gonna send something to the board on these other examples that Laura's pulled together. I believe at the last meeting it was kind of discussed briefly and asked for. So we have that complete and we'll send it out either later today or tomorrow. But I think Laura summed up everything quite well. There are many options for the board to consider. And Brian's is obviously one of them, and there are others. So we have a little bit of time so we can get this to the area where we think it's right. Because Al's hit on it very well. We really need the smart meters out there. And ideally, what I would like to see happen is to have the smart meters installed and to get data so that we can do some analysis and figure out what is going to work best for us, whether it be Brian's proposal with some adjustments or something else. But without the data, it's hard to do that. And we really need 12 months worth of data to come up with something good. And I think that speaks back to, doing a pilot, right? And so we internally have been talking about that, about how we're going to deploy that. It's a little different than it's been in the past, because we can't just put a blanket who wants to participate in a time of use pilot, because deployment is happening in certain areas. So that's a challenge that we're working through right now.
All right.
Might be worth just elaborating on a little bit, Dave, is I know the board members have expressed in the past a desire to see the time of use pilot roll out for customers who do receive the smart meters. And we need to think a little bit about the rollout timing and the rollout plan. Others who are implementing smart meters at the same time as they're implementing time of use have decided to have a customer wait for 6 months before they actually roll onto a time of use plan, so that they can get familiar with the information available from the new smart meter platforms, so that they can start to look at their usage, and also for us to give them tips for how to adjust their usage or shift their usage, and also so that customers don't confuse any bill impacts that might be happening from the new smart meters with what might be happening from time of use. So, that it seems like there's some benefits to having customers wait 6 months before they start time of use after they get the smart meter, but we would lose some time. So the board might think about whether the cost in losing the time offsets the benefit of having that additional time for the customer.
Yeah, I agree that we need to make sure that we pilot this, that we, our customers are educated prior to it being rolled out. And I think in Dave, you and I have talked about the pilot. Is that going to be part of your smart meter project update?
Yeah, I can touch on that in that as well.
Okay. All right. Any further thoughts on this from Alice or Warren?
No, I don't think so.
Great. Well, we are ahead of schedule by a significant amount. Yeah, that is great. So I am going to move us on to the smart meter project update. Dave, do you want to give us that update and explain the pilot ideas and other updates?
Yep, sure. So we're making some progress here. I reported previously that we had been pre-wiring the gateways in the shop. Since I reported that, we working with internal staff across a few different divisions. The gateways, all 15 are now installed. They are communicating back into the Yukon software, which is great. We did order a 16th gateway as a spare. You know, if a tree branch comes down and damages one, we need to be able to replace it. And we've decided to order a second spare because, as you all know, we have a lot of trees, and if one goes down and we need to use a spare, it's going to be another 3 to 6 months to get another one. So we'll end up having 2 spares. But the point with the current spare is we're installing it at station 223 right now. And the idea is for us to get that on the system and to start installing some smart meters in the substation, so we can pull that data into the software. And then, you know, obviously it'll be in the Yukon software, but then it needs to transition over to NISC. So that's underway right now. The NISC portion is being worked on. We've been told it'll be done by the end of the month, which is good. That'll give us some time to do some internal testing and then obviously start deployment in July. And when we start the deployment in July, we're going to do a slow rollout with just the metering staff installing meters. The reason for that is we want to get through any hiccups before we start really going after it. So that's encouraging. We still have the load control devices to come in. Out of the residential meters, we have just over 3,700 meters in, so a little over 50%, which is great. So things are rolling. We have those all stored in the warehouse, so they're out of the weather, and that's great. We have been meeting internally, going through, you know, the deployments and all of that. So I feel like we're in a pretty good place. And I did report before that we did have 1 meter installed and communicated. It wasn't a billing meter, but it was more just so that we could see how it worked. So that's good. We're in the process of replacing tablets because our tablets are outdated, and you know, you need a tablet in a lot of cases for installs and things of that nature. So Jason's team's been starting that. So we're looking forward to that getting done. Let's see what else. We're working with the water department. There's, I believe it's 65 water customers on Great Road in Acton. And if you recall, that's the area that we have to install repeaters on the utility poles. So there's a process there where we have to, you know, petition Acton and work with Eversource and Verizon on pole attachment agreements. Joe has briefly started that process. He's reached out to Eversource. So we're getting that underway. I don't want to lose that piece. It's one piece of the project, but it's important because if we aren't successful with that, then we have radio meters that we'd have to use the old system for, and we don't want to pay for 2 softwares, maintenance agreements and all that. So we have that as a priority and we're working through that. Let's see. We've, Carol, you can jump into if I miss anything. So I did mention the MDM piece from NISC. You know, once that's done, we're gonna have to get some training, make sure we understand how that works. I think we have a decent idea on it, but is quite a bit. Now, the other piece that I mentioned was the load control devices. When those come in, that's going to be a lengthier process. And what I mean by that is our electrician is going to have to go out, schedule appointments at each customer's property, and then replace the load control and do an inspection and make sure devices are connected to it. Now, we have had in the past found that, you know, some devices that were supposed to be connected weren't. because maybe they got a new hot water heater and the replacement and the electrician didn't wire it back to the thing. You know, that's happened in the past. We've had customers transition from ETS to heat pumps, and we just found one of those. So as we go through these, when some of them are going to be fairly quick, you know, couple hour replacement, some might be longer than that. So that piece is going to take a little bit of time. But that was known to start. So, you know,
And the those load control customers, those are going to be handled by your staff, not the hired people for doing meter replacements, correct? That's
correct. The meter, yes. Our utility electrician will be doing that portion of the project. In terms of the meter installs, that's going to be the meter division, and the line division is going to supplement. So.
okay. So we won't have only CMLP staff will be going in and doing that kind of load control detailed work in someone's home. It's not going to be someone we hire from outside.
Right, correct.
Okay.
And it's going to be all CMLP staff doing meter installations to start. And then we'll reevaluate if we need a third party to help us finish. But I think with the spread of the meters showing up, you know, with commercial showing up much, you know, later in the year, you know, and it might be into the beginning of 24, that gives us enough spread that we're going to try and manage it and kind of go from there.
All right. And with the 3,700 residential meters, do you feel that you could get a pilot neighborhood up and going by what time to start getting data from customers?
So we're planning on starting in a specific area, and once we start the installs, it should go fairly quick up there. That's up in the border road area, in the adjacent streets. So it's a pretty good section. The idea is to work out from the gateway that's up there, and then move towards the 350 units that are behind the substation.
Oh, yes. So that Muse area.
Yep.
And so you think that the Muse area and those residential neighborhoods over in that section of Concord would be the first to do the installs of meters, to talk to the gateway, to actually get the first instance of a neighborhood coming online with this new system. And when do you think that first neighborhood would start producing data?
So the plan is to start installing in there in July.
Okay.
So, you know, the piece that we're working on right now with the test meters at the substation, that's the first piece. We want to make sure everything's working properly. And then we're really dependent on NISC to finish up their work. So there's a bridge between UConn and NISC.
I see.
Now, that doesn't mean we can't install the meters and the information will come into UConn. Then it's just a manual transfer into NISC, which I want to avoid because that's, you know,
Right.
human error can happen. But we can do it. And
There's like three things have to go right before we actually have data in NISC that's granular.
yeah, and you know, the project's on track there. So I feel pretty good with NISC completing their stuff when they said they will. So in reality, we should be installing in the middle of July meters if everything tests out properly.
Great. Any other questions from Alice or Warren? Alice?
I just want to understand the relative risk question here. We're removing the old meters and installing new ones. Is there stored data on the old ones that we need to think about? I know that when we move computers and we change over to newer computers, we have to wipe them all clean. Is there a process that we have to go through on meters that might be similar to what we do on other data analysis, or, you know, the data sources like computers?
Yeah,
smartphones?
so it's a great question, Alice. There is data in the meter just on usage and other things like that. But by law, we have to keep the meters for 6 months. And the reason for that is if there's a customer inquiry on a bill, then we have to be able to pull the meter. So we have a put together inventory management piece so that we know where each meter is, what pallet it's on, so that we can pull it out if we have to, run the report, and then complete the bill inquiry. So, yeah,
And
we
it'll
got,
all be in a secured site someplace and,
correct.
yeah, okay.
And then once that 6 months is up, then the meters will get recycled. They have precious metals in them, so we'll put a bid out for recycling them.
Okay, thanks.
And the data that these meters have collected, we archive that for a certain amount of time in a database. Is that, I think it used to be a year, and then we had some issues, and I think you extended the time to archive hourly data. But I know that, minute by minute data gets very expensive to archive because it's so large. How long will that data reside? Are we going to keep that for like 3 years, or is it, we may get rid of the meter after 6 months, but the data itself might be available for a longer period of time?
Carol, is it 5 years of data in NISC?
Yes, 5 years.
Okay, great. So NSIC will still have the meter readings, but they won't be auditable because the meter will get recycled after 6 months.
Yeah, unless we have a bill inquiry where someone's bill changed drastically and they didn't understand why, we pull that meter out and do a test and find out it was functioning properly, or it was slow or reading fast.
Yeah, well, my thought is more when people move to time of use in a year or so, they may want to know multiple years worth of data from the old meter. It may not be as, it may be just monthly readings, but at least they'll have some bearing on their usage. I'm just making sure that we don't wipe out all that data and then put in time of use and can't tell our customers what they used to do. I don't think that's the case, but that was my
No, it
concern.
isn't. We'll have that information.
Okay, great.
Keep in mind, Brian, that currently in NISC, that data is not hourly,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Even if they came from a next grid meter, it only stores the monthly data.
Right. Right.
In the future, it will have hourly data, but I don't know, is it going to store the hourly data for 5 years, Carol?
That'd be a lot of data.
Yeah, I'm not, we haven't actually talked about that yet. I don't think we've determined, as things stand, yes, but we can make a change to that if needed. But internally, I don't think we've discussed that and made a decision on it yet.
Okay. With the new meters, it would be good to have 2 years worth of hourly data, but we'll have to look at the expense involved in archiving that amount of data for all customers. Other questions? Warren, do you have any thoughts? Nope, you're good. Thank you, Dave. That was a great update. I'm very happy to hear that this meter program is moving forward and getting implemented. This is one of those backbone things that makes a lot of other things possible.
It's been a long time coming, but
It has, yeah. All right. The next thing on the agenda is the residential assistance opt-out rate. Dave, do you want to take this, or you want to pass this to Laura, or?
Laura's going to take this one.
All right.
Okay, I understand my sound wasn't terribly good in the beginning. Is this a little bit better?
It is.
Okay, good. As the board may remember, the board voted in the past to implement a physical meter opt-out fee. This is not to be confused with opting out of the time of use rate, but rather this is for customers who, for one reason or another, do not want to have one of the new AMS or one of the existing AMR meters installed at their home. And so CMLP offers for those customers who don't want AMR or AMS meters to opt out. The utility would install a digital meter, not an analog meter, a digital meter with the radio board removed, which prevents any two-way communication. And it still requires us to go up and read the meter once a month. So the board implemented a fee for those customers choosing that opt-out option of $75 one time to change the meter, and then an ongoing monthly manual read fee of $20. We have received at least one inquiry from a customer requesting whether or not those fees could be eliminated for low-income qualified customers. And so we want to bring to the board the question of whether or not the board wants to have a separate opt-out fee structure for those customers who qualify for our low-income assistance.
Alice, do you want to share your, Warren? You're muted, Warren.
Yes, yeah, I think we should consider a reduced fee for low-income customers. I would not want to eliminate the fee altogether because I think we should be giving people incentives to go with the system that's best for the light plant and that's best for the community as a whole. But I could see if somebody's low income, we may want to have a lower fee than we would otherwise. Maybe instead of $20 a month, it's $10 a month, something like that. I don't know what others think.
Well, my thought would be waive the $75 install fee, but keep the monthly fee the same for billing management. You know, more every price needs, you know, another code, and it still costs the same amount to send the guy out with the truck.
That would be okay with me as well. You know, in that case, we will have done something that recognizes that some customers have lower means, but we still give them proper signals and incentives.
Yeah.
So we don't charge for the installation of the new smart meter, right? So the $75 fee is only applied to customers who choose to have a different meter, right?
Yep.
Yep.
So I'm wondering whether, you know, what we're looking at is $20 a month is $240 to somebody's annual budget that they would be paying to have somebody come in and read their meter. Feels to me a bit high. It's a high cost for somebody who's already having trouble making ends meet and on assistance. And the idea that they'd be charged a fee for installation when the rest of the town is not charged installation fees also feels a little awkward to me. Because if we're talking about income eligible folks, that we're putting an unfair burden on those folks and their ability to pay as it is. So I don't know what the solution is, but it doesn't feel, I understand when we talked about it, we wanted to incentivize folks to go on to a smart meter, but for whatever reason, some people are choosing not to.
Yeah, so
I don't want to be penalizing folks for that decision. But because especially with income eligible folks who may have significant trouble meeting the demands of 240 plus an additional 75.
yeah, so the switch to the AMS switch is the utility's decision, and the utility provided the meter for the customers. The opt-out is a customer decision.
Yeah, I know.
And that's why there was a fee of $75 to manage the program, to, you know, make sure we have this special meter. You know, now it's the digital without the radio communication. And then the $20 was the cost of having someone drive out, walk up to the property and read the meter, because it's not even a drive-by anymore. It's, you know, they have to actually stop and walk over to the meter to manually read it, versus a radio read where they drive down the roads today and all the meters talk to the car. So that $20 was just to support the person going out in the truck, and that was what Laura and Dave came back to us with, the expense related to that. So I'm hesitant to reduce that because it's a choice made by a customer to get on to this opt-out rate, then gets this fee that's created by that decision, supported by all the other residents. I'm wary of that. And I'm also wary of making this more complicated than it needs to be. You know, splitting the difference sometimes creates a lot of logistical headaches. I mean, Carol can, I'm thinking about the billing system and having, you know, a reduced rate for the meter read for one customer, because we created a program that said, if you opt out and your resident assistant, then you get this reduced rate. So I think the easiest solution is to say, you know, we'll waive the $75 fee and have other customers pay for that to enable that they have this choice. But I would lean towards not making a reduction in the meter read cost, because that is pretty much what it costs for the truck to roll out. And I think, if I remember correctly, that's under collecting. Is that, Dave?
It's-
Is that right?
Yeah, it's significantly under collecting, but that's what, we felt like a full truck roll was too much. And so it's a portion of what a truck roll would cost.
And I
Is it-
believe, Dave, didn't you say it's quite a bit lower than surrounding communities opt-out?
Yep.
Manual read fee, monthly manual read fee.
Yeah, it's significantly lower. But that was the choice that we, you know, talked about and then the board agreed to, so.
You know, I remember the conversations, but you know, I'm thinking about the equity for folks who really are financially strapped and for whom this would be a significant increase in their billing. And so I just want us to be thinking about the equity question. Are we penalizing?
Yeah, no,
And
you,
is there a common good for the utility to pay the cost or reduce the cost? And how to do that. I'm less concerned about NIFC. That's what systems are built for. You tell it what you want it to do and it does it. It's a little extra work in setting it up, but I'm less concerned about that than I am about the impact on a customer and ability to pay. I'd hate to see that when we review how many people we have on assistance unable to pay and the time delay in their ability, that I hate to see that number go up.
any other thoughts, Warren?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have tremendous sympathy for folks who want to opt out of a system that's good for the community and good for the light plant. I would be more sympathetic to proposals that provide greater incentive to low-income customers across the board, not just for the ones who opt out. And I think when we're looking forward in terms of our rate structure, things that help out customers who are not able to pay the full freight are well worth pursuing. But this one just doesn't seem like we should be bending so far over backwards for this.
Yeah, and I kind of feel I'm with Warren's kind of thinking on this, but I don't want to create barriers that people can't overcome. That's kind of why I'm willing to waive the $75 install fee for these customers, and it's easy to administrate. It is removing a financial barrier, but you know, it is the customer's decision if they want to go on to this rate.
Yeah, but and I'm comfortable with that approach and basically agree with it. But we should acknowledge that we're eliminating the smaller barrier and we're leaving the bigger financial cost in there.
That you are correct. Any other thoughts, Alice or Laura or Dave?
No, I hear the comments, but
Oh, sorry.
no, I was just saying, I understand the comments that, you know, I've heard, but it just makes me feel uncomfortable that it feels like we're penalizing folks with lower means.
Yeah,
And it is, I mean, that's
Yeah.
why it's set up, is to disincentivize folks from choosing this option, but I wish there were.
No, so it's 104% of the average cost per kilowatt. That was the adder that we had placed on it that was above the cost of the program. So the $20 is below the cost of the program to roll that truck. The $75 is for the special meter without the radio communication. So I don't think it's I really don't like the description of our opt-out rate being punitive.
But that's, I'm just suggesting that's what it feels like to me. I understand, I've heard a different argument from both of you at the table this morning. I'm just expressing how it appears to me.
Yeah, okay. I don't see any other thoughts. And next on our agenda,
Brian, before you leave this, are you
Yeah.
going to entertain a motion for a vote on this topic now that you've discussed it?
oh, did we
No,
put,
We can't because it's not on the agenda.
yeah, the agenda was just informational.
We don't need a rate hearing for a fee, do we?
No, but on the agenda, you'd have to have it posted as a vote. And it's not.
Okay, sorry.
But you can come back next month and we'll take a vote. Or if you, do you need a decision quickly on this? I don't think so. Laura?
We can go until July, that's fine. It just,
Okay.
we want to have something in play for when we start doing the larger scale deployment. If it comes up, we don't have anything right now.
Great. So all you have for today is the board's thoughts on this topic, and you can come back to us with a proposal and we'll make a vote in July. All right, so next on the agenda is liaison and public comments. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to share their thoughts with any of the topics discussed today? Pamela.
Hi, Pamela, 13 Concord Green. I look forward to the near future in which Concord produces all its electricity itself in a distributed grid system, and the light plant is the distributor rather than the provider and reseller of electricity. And in order to get to that, we have to incentivize the behavior that gets to that. We're not like Laura's for-profit investor-owned utilities who see residential solar and customers and batteries as competition. We've got to make as much solar. Every residence that invests in solar is an investment the light plant doesn't have to make. So we need to really reward those. There's no rate structure you can make that doesn't incentivize behavior. None. You can't make one that seems fair to everybody. That's impossible. So you have to make one that aims us at the result we want, which is lots of solar, lots of heat pumps, no fossil fuels. So penalize fossil fuel users, make special rates for all electric buildings that use heat pumps so that, for instance, they aren't penalized if they can't put solar on, and cost shift it onto the McMansions that use lots of electricity and also use gas.
Great, thank you.
Don't try to be fair.
All right, thank you, Laura. Sorry, Pamela. Mary, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, briefly. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Mary Hartman, member of the select board. I just wanted to let people know that the charge for the task force that was authorized by the town meeting and at our last town meeting we've written the charge. We're going to be nominating people. So the charge will be reviewed by the select board on June 22nd. We will nominate 5 members. We will appoint them on July 10th, hopefully, if everything goes according to plan. So the task force will be appointed, and they'll have a charge, and they'll be ready to work hopefully by the middle of July. I just wanted to give you that update.
That's helpful. Thank you very much. Andy.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. Years ago, the town the town decided to pull the lines off the poles and consequently dig trenches, put in conduits and bury lines underground. My question is, when are they going to complete this job and bury the power lines? The only thing I have in the ground is my Concord broadband.
What area are you referring to?
Well, I'm on Belknap Street.
So that's one of the next ones up for us to convert. We have the design done, but the process that slows us down is funding. The underground fund gets depleted after we do the conduit installation, then we have to let it build back up. So that one is on the list to get done in the near future.
And Dave, is Belknap covered by Verizon poles? Because I know Verizon is also another time barrier to getting rid of all the poles.
So I believe that is in our pole area, but just keep in mind that when we do the conversion, Comcast usually follows shortly thereafter, but Verizon lags. So when you drive around town, you'll see a lot of shortened poles, and that's because Verizon's still on them.
Yeah. Phil, you have a comment. You're muted, Phil. There you are.
Yes, hi, good morning. I'm have a question on behalf of Janet Miller, who's was unable to attend this morning. And it was, she just wanted to get the status of the issue of the multiple meter charge that was discussed at the Light Board meeting last November.
Yeah, I'm sorry that didn't make it on the agenda. I wasn't able to add it. We were thinking we were going to do ETS today, and then we weren't ready. So I didn't think we had time when I was setting the agenda. Yeah, I'll email you and Dave about getting that back on. Phil reminded me that we have an outstanding question from November about accessory meters or second meters, and deciding upon a fee. We had discussed doing some kind of, roughly $5 fee for having a second meter on a home versus the full meter charge, which people are getting 2 of those today. So we need to circle back on that in July. That sound good, Dave?
Yep, that's fine. I'm writing it down right now.
Okay. Andy, again?
On the discussion about the lowering the fees for the opt-outs, how many people do we have, or how many residents do we have in this low income program? Because if we're talking about 10 or 20 people, it doesn't even justify talking about it to me.
So we have around 160 residential assistance customers. And that varies. It goes up and down, but it's been around 150, 160 for a while now.
So what percentage is that of the total customers?
Very small percentage.
Yeah, we have about 6,500 residents, 160 on assistance. So it's a small number.
And even a smaller number who would choose to opt out.
Yeah, which Laura has heard from just one. So yeah. But we try to address all questions that we can. So any other questions? I'm seeing none. I'd entertain a motion. Warren, do you want to make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I move we adjourn.
Excellent. Pamela, you raised your hand. Do you have a quick question?
Are we maximizing the battery storage and the solar in the middle school?
Yes. Yep, we've gone through that. It'll be a 2 megawatt, 4 megawatt hour system. And that's appropriate.
Thanks.
Great. We have a motion. Alice, do you want to give a second?
A second.
Alice, would you entertain adjournment?
I would entertain adjournment. Thank you.
Excellent. Warren,
Yes.
and I would as well. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye
Thank
now.
you.